I have the most compelling story for you guys. A mother's story of carnage, courage, and the triumph of faith. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Senior Care Made Simple, an elder care podcast, your guide to navigating home health care with confidence. Hosted by Andrea Albertini, founder and CEO of Horizon Care Services, an industry leader in private duty home care in South Florida. To learn more, visit horizoncareservices.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am Andrea Albertini, the host of Senior Care Made Simple podcast, along with my co-host, Doris Muscarella. Hello, Doris.
Hello there. Very excited about our speaker today. It is a privilege for me to introduce Nancy Ferraro. She is an estate planning attorney, but my favorite part of many of her credentials is she wrote a book, When the Bough Breaks. She's an award-winning author. She's a professional speaker, keynote speaker, in case you're looking for a speaker for an event. And she's probably going to be one of our TED Talk speakers pretty soon. We are working with her on that. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Nancy Ferraro.
Well, thank you for having me, Andrea. I am so thrilled that you found me, and I've been enjoying our reconnection, and I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Actually, Nancy, when you and I had coffee a few weeks ago, it meant so much to me, our conversation, because we have so much similar things, right?
And I'm a readaholic, so I already ordered the book from Amazon. I want you to give me a little bit background about yourself and what made you write this amazing book.
Well, as you know, I'm a local estate planning and probate attorney, but I'm also a mom. And years ago, I adopted a 4-year-old boy from Romania. All of our reports said that he was, quote unquote, normal. We don't use that term anymore. But George arrived in the suburbs of New Jersey, a feral child. He was a wild animal in the body of a boy with a host of conditions ranging from fetal alcohol syndrome to reactive attachment disorder to institutionally acquired autism to low IQ. Laundry list of psychoses. We came to call our new family member Hurricane George. And when we all emerged, I want to say victorious, I felt a responsibility to share my story so that I could shed light into that dark tunnel where there seems to be no solution for our children's problems. Because anyone who's parented a child knows that when you cannot solve a problem for your child, not only do you blame yourself, society blames you. Your social outlets evaporate. Your resources seem to evaporate, and you seem to be in a hopeless situation. I want everyone to know I'm not an angel, not a victim. I am simply a mom who was plunged into a nightmare and lived to tell the tale. And that is why I want to share my journey and my story.
That's a beautiful story, by the way. I love this. I love the fact that you acknowledged his problems, even though you called him Hurricane George. But that there's a reason behind that. And this compelled you to write the book?
It did. I actually started writing it quite some time ago and always wanted to write, but never felt as though I had something people would actually want to read or anything worth reading. And when we survived George, I thought, well, now I've got something to talk about. And I did start writing the book. I have an older son and he was at home at the time. And HarperCollins actually asked me for a book proposal on When the Bough Breaks. But I didn't even know what a book proposal was, let alone had I written more than 10 pages. And I called my older son and he said, I am not over my childhood with George. This cannot see the light of day. So I put it away for a long time. And then I received an email from a writer's retreat that I had been stalking. And the email said, send 10 pages of whatever you're working on. I thought, perfect, I've got 10 pages. And when I got into the finals, I called my son again. I said, I won't do it if you don't want me to. And he said, no, Mom, I'm proud of you. Go for it. And I said, okay, honey, don't read the book.
It's already out and published.
It's out. It won. But yeah, to my knowledge, he has not yet read it. Maybe, years down when I'm gone. But
is he still talking to you?
The older one, yes. It's so interesting because he's very intelligent. And I believe that had I not had this kind of crisis in my home, he would have grown up a spoiled brat because I was indulgent. And he would have grown up not knowing what empathy is. And he would have grown up thinking that when people get troublesome, they're expendable, because we could have sent him back to Romania. We could have, frankly, sent George back. And the only thing that ran through my mind was, what am I teaching my older son? Who am I going to turn him into if I do that? And the other consideration, of course, was, had I sent George back to Romania and aborted the adoption, there was no doubt in my mind, but he would have been dead very quickly. Well, he's violent. So fetal alcohol syndrome produces extraordinary violence in children. And for almost a decade, almost every day, I was the object of the violence it produced in him. But it wasn't his fault. So you can't hate a kid who can't form the intent to hurt you, right? It wasn't his fault. And once it was over, it was over. But yes, that did have very deep repercussions on my family. But my older son grew up to be an empathetic, smart, intelligent, lovely person. And I don't think that would have happened if we had not had this experience with George.
I think that there is a stigma around the world, this planet, when it comes to mental health.
And that's the message. Throw back the mantle of shame. It is time to get help, because hanging your hat on that and hiding doesn't do anyone any good. And I know you read all the journals, and according to JAMA, 1 in 6 American children are touched by fetal alcohol.
Wow.
So it's not an imported problem. It is an American problem, and we're not getting help. And the last survey I read several years ago in Florida, 15% of pregnant women admitted to binge drinking during pregnancy. And if 15% of women admitted to it, the number has to be a lot higher.
Oh, absolutely.
So ignoring it is not going to get us anywhere. There's a lot of legislation going on in DC, but there's still not enough funding. There's not enough funding, there's not enough awareness, and there's not enough allowance for doctors to treat this issue rather than reporting the mother. So we have a lot still hidden in the shadows that has to be dealt with.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things that I would love to be able to do is be able to find a politician that could help us with that. Because if you think about it, and I mentioned this in my show before, how much does it cost around the chemotherapy? $45,000 to $50,000, right? That's what it costs around the chemo averaging. So can we take $40,000, $50,000, $30,000 to help our healthcare system with helping people with mental health disorder? How can we do that? That's one of the things that I would love to be able to do as I retired soon, hopefully. Anyway, but it's just a thought that is out there for me all the time.
And you're right, until it becomes a priority, because I read somewhere that you can tell what a country's priorities are by where it spends its time and money. We're not spending time on this. Education, mental health, we're not spending money on it. We're not committing resources. And until we can get some politicians to commit. Now, Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota is a big advocate for fetal alcohol syndrome. But we have to get some grassroots help. We have to get some grassroots attention. So yes, I do agree with you. And when you start that crusade, Andrea, let me know. I'll be right beside you.
That is a challenge because nobody wants to talk about it. And then the other thing that, come to my attention, because I do have, alcohol addiction in my family, is what do you do with the 35-year-old or 40-year-old that that needs med management, that needs supervision, that, is a danger to herself and others? Where do you put those people?
And now you're talking about something that's in my swim lane, which is guardianship. And that's extremely difficult because, as you're probably well aware, if you want to become someone's guardian, you're giving yourself a life sentence.
Yes.
It is expensive. It's under the supervision of the court. You are bound to do at least annual accountings. If you want to spend any kind of money on that person, it has to go through a hearing in the court system. It's onerous, and we do need a different procedure for that. We do need something. And I come across it a lot with the special needs community. because the parents know that they need to open guardianship for their children, but they're already so stressed, and now they're looking at taking on this other burden, this other responsibility that's on top of everything else, and they're just suffocating. So yes, it is onerous right now. That is the only legal proceeding that we have.
But here's the other thing. So I'm experienced this in my family, right, for the last 8 months. And I think you and I discussed that in our lunch a little bit, our breakfast a little bit. I have a family member in guardianship. But even when you still have to, if the state doesn't fund, a community, a facility for this person to be, you have to fund it, right? But here's the problem. There's not many out there that will take someone like right now, this particular family member is in an assisted living facility at 35 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So, there's mental health issues. There is, things that happen, meningitis, encephalitis, and a lot of brain damage from long-term alcohol use. So those people get lost in our society, because they can't fit in a group home because they don't want to take their medication. They need somebody that's going to pretty much say, you have to take this medication. And the challenge that families go through it, because you can't force. And at any point in time, that person can just leave the assisted living facility, right? Like my family member can just leave the assisted living facility.
Well, yes and no.
And get themselves in trouble.
Can. Well,
they can't, but they can.
But they do.
Right?
Dumb luck. I was living in New Jersey while I was raising George. And very luckily, the resources were there and available for him. So when I moved to Florida, I actually thought about moving George here. But once I started investigating the resources, I realized I needed him to stay put because we just don't have it, and we need to fight for it. We don't have the resources that we need to deal with the mental illness here.
Yeah. Well, every state is different,
right?
As you know. You were in New Jersey, so you had a lot more support over there than we would have in the state of Florida. And it has gotten a little better for the last, I'd say, 25 years that I've been here, but it's still very, very minimal.
Okay, so were there any programs or resources that assisted you?
What a great question. Yes, there were. The question was, how did I find them? And believe it or not, the way I found them was talking to other mothers. I met my friend Susan Anderson in the grocery store once a week. She was changing diapers on her 24-year-old catatonic child. And we would chat in the produce aisle, and I would be crying on her shoulder. And she would say, Nancy, aren't we blessed? I'm like, what are you talking about? Because we were talking about how other people look at your child and treat your child. And she said, but for our children, we would be those people. And not only did she change my attitude, she turned me on to services. And she taught me how to talk to the service providers. So we had a division in New Jersey, Division of Developmental Disabilities, and I had a caseworker. And Marlene would leave her voicemail, have a blessed day, all the while telling me that I wasn't supposed to have the information that I had. I wasn't supposed to know that George was next on the list for after-school care at the ARC. I wasn't supposed to know. And by the way, you have to fill out 50 pages of paperwork. And, well, mother on a mission.
Have a blessed day.
Have a blessed day, Marlene. She had that paperwork back at her desk the next morning because once you find the resources, you start pulling on the thread. Other resources
Absolutely.
reveal themselves. But you have to know the magic words. You have to know what to ask for, that you're entitled. Listen, this is my biggest piece of advice to anyone raising a special needs child. You don't have to be a lawyer, but you must know your rights. You must know what FAPE is. FAPE is the federal law guaranteeing every child a free, appropriate public education. Magic words.
Can you repeat that for our listeners,
Wow.
please? That's
It's
so
called,
important.
yes, it is the federal law guaranteeing every child, special needs or typical, a free, appropriate public education. A lot of parents rush into IEP meetings, which are the special ed meetings, and say, My child is not reaching their highest and best. Well, that's not the school district's job. You walk in there saying that, you mark yourself as an amateur. You walk in quoting the statute, now you've got people listening.
Right.
You walk in saying, this is what my child does best. Now you're forming a team. How can we maximize, Joey did a great job, putting away the toys after playtime. Small things, acknowledge the little things, because those are really the big things. And once you start to get those people on your team, now you've got something to work with. Now you're forming a team, getting people on your side. They may not discuss cost with you. It's always in the back of their minds. But once you show people that you know what you're doing, once you reinforce yourself with backups, once you have sat with that feeling, and that's the first thing that you must do. A lot of people live in denial. I have met so many parents who said, Joey will outgrow it. I can love it out of him. Well, I thought I was going to love it out of George. When a doctor tells you your child has a developmental delay, in our parlance, delay is a temporary thing, right? You catch up. Oh, no. I had a neurologist back me against the wall and explain that in the medical world, a delay is a permanent disability.
Wow.
So
why don't they say permanent disability? Hello?
No. It's crazy, right? So it is a process of not only sitting with the feelings, because you have to acknowledge them. You're not going to get anywhere if you're not going to acknowledge what you're dealing with, right? I know it's hard. It's sometimes impossibly hard. There were times when I would sit in my car after IEP meetings or after talking to Marlene and just sob, not because they said no, but because I had to keep asking over and over again for what my child deserves. And I want parents out there to know you're not asking for favors. You're demanding respect.
Absolutely.
And when you think that you can love it out of a child, we all know love alone is not enough. But advocacy is love in motion. And that is the greatest gift that you can give your child.
Oh, my God. Amazing, amazing story. I'm telling you, I'm going to hire you to do a speaking engagement because the world needs to know this. The world needs to learn. I have to ask, how is George now?
George is like the fat man who jumps in the pool, right? The fat man's always fine. Everybody else is bobbing around for their lives.
I love
it. It's always been that way. But George is great. He has 24/7 care. That's something I could not give him. He does still rage. However, the police in the town where he lives know him. And that is a great advantage. Another reason I can never move him from his group home setting. Because when he does rage, and if the staff cannot control him or the day program, the police will have to sometimes handcuff him. They will take him to the hospital, not to jail, allow him to calm down, get whatever medication he needs, and then take him home. So it's a much less stressful situation for everyone involved. And he is in love with Wawa. I don't know if you're aware of Wawa. Yeah, he has a coffee addiction. Some months he spends up to $300 on coffee. And I'm like, hold on. I'm not funding this, George. Slow down, buddy. But he is the mayor. He wants to know if there was a storm, he wants to know if there was a flood in your basement. He wants to know what your dog's name is and, nice. And if you do something, go to a restaurant, he wants to know about the waiter. Was he nice? I said yes.
Oh my
and then he wants to know, what did he say? I ran out of conversation. But he is the king of his world. And I am so, so grateful that I found the setting for him that I found, that they actually fell in love with him because he's been there since he was almost 14. And this group home actually revamped their business model so they could keep him.
Wow.
So they aged the kids up.
Right.
And it's a wonderful thing. My idea of an institution was frightening. And from the time George was 4, neurologists, psychologists were telling me this child belongs in a group home, in an institution. And let me tell you something. I dismissed them one after the other. I was doctor shopping. I was doctor shopping for the cure because I am mother. I will fix this. And it wasn't until I realized that institutions, group homes, were homes in neighborhoods and with 2 or 3 other kids, and they lived like family, and they had 24-hour care, someone checking on him during the night every 15 minutes. It became a no-brainer. I think it was the greatest thing I ever did for George because he's thriving.
How old is he now?
George is now 29 years old.
Oh, wow. That is amazing.
Wow, that's awesome. That's so great to hear that.
How old was he when you put him in the home?
He was just shy of 14 years old.
14 years old.
And the reason I didn't do it before was because he was little and I was afraid for him. And I had this awful image of children being strapped to beds, and I just couldn't imagine doing something like that. But once I calmed my butt down and started listening to the experts and actually adjusting my expectations for George, because he's never going to be a rocket scientist, he's never going to drive a car, he's never going to live independently, and he's never going to have that mother-son relationship. To George, Mom is my name. Mm-hmm. It's his means of getting what he needs from me. And to some people, that may seem very sad, but in George's world, that's what it is. And once you can actually accept your reality and the way your life is going to go forward, like I said, when the bough breaks, that's when you have to reinvent your relationship with your child. And it's been so wonderful and fulfilling because I have watched him blossom and thrive in the environment where he lives. It's wonderful.
I'm so impressed. I like the fact that you say in George's world. It's like you have accepted everything about him, and now you know how he functions, and you love him for being in his own world. So I'm sure you're a pioneer on special needs and all of these programs. And your book is, I can't wait to read your book, by the way. It sounds so exciting and interesting.
Thank you.
I think it's absolutely amazing how you're looking at it, George's world. I think that the way I guess we should start thinking is, whoever has a child with disability or fetal alcohol syndrome or whatever the case may be, is to understand their world, because there is such a thing as their world, right? So my family member, that's maybe what I should do, understand their world.
And accept them.
And accept them. And then when you do that, how can we do that? How can I accept their world?
Exactly. And so George's world, remember the TV show Cheers? And when Norm would walk into the bar, he'd say, Norm. Well, when George walks into Wawa, it's like, George! I think he keeps the whole place afloat. So
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's awesome, though. But it gives you acceptance for who they are. And that's amazing.
And I think this is a good lesson for parents going through this right now, is understanding your child's disability and your child's world. So, whatever the name of your child is, right, is understanding their world and not feeling so guilty. I think part of what happens sometimes as a parent is we feel guilty because we don't know how to help them. We feel guilty because we want better for them, but that's not their world. We have to be able to get into their world, to understand them, to be able to, help them. So everyone, I know that this episode has been wonderful, educational, and amazing with my friend Nancy Ferraro, Esquire, one of the best estate planning attorney in Palm Beach County. Please get this book, When the Bough Breaks. It's on Amazon. Nancy, so if someone wants to get a hold of you for anything, either buying the books or just your amazing experience as an attorney, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, aside from tripping me in the street, you can reach me at ferrarolawpalmbeach.com. You can call me 772-222-7979. The book is actually in store at Barnes & Noble here at the local Barnes & Noble. What a thrill.
Awesome.
It's very exciting.
That's so exciting.
And I do have a support group on Facebook. It is called When the Bough Bends.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love that.
That's amazing.
I got to join that for sure.
So I do have the QR code for that. Love to have the community there. And it is my way of supporting the special needs community in our area and all over.
That was absolutely amazing. We're so grateful that you came. We're so grateful that you shared this amazing, incredible journey with us. Thanks again. And thanks my co-host, Doris Muscarella.
I'm too busy getting in Facebook and joining the group.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're so funny.
Thank you.
Are you kidding me?
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for listening.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in again. We love having you every week. Remember, we drop an episode every Monday. Have a wonderful day and stay healthy, everybody. Till next time.
Senior Care Made Simple, an elder care podcast, has been brought to you by Horizon Care Services, your private duty choice in home care in South Florida. For more information on acquiring home care assistance, visit horizoncareservices.com.